It's pretty ridiculous to see how strong Luffy and Kidd is while having Sea Stone handcuffs on. It's crazy to think about. Like, if this was pre-time skip, Luffy couldn't even do anything when it came to Sea Stone. Like, he was so weakened that he was just literally just like sludge. He fell to the ground. He couldn't do anything. And it's just ridiculous to think how strong he is while being weakened. Imagine if he wasn't. That's what people are basically saying in this chapter when they saw Kidd and Luffy carrying all these stones to the ship to load up. It's pretty ridiculous. I'm really just impressed by that. Now, many might assume that this could be the first case that we've ever seen Luffy really demonstrate that he's kind of strong, even though he's weakened by the sea, but that is actually not the case. We have seen cases to where Luffy is very strong while being weakened. Let's think about the Fishman Island arc when he was going up against the main villain. He was fighting underwater, having his fist literally underwater, but even while he was using his power underwater, he still was very strong. He was packing a punch. So Luffy has for a while now been very strong, even against the sea. When it weakens him, he's able to at the very least still fight back. So it does show that this didn't just come out of nowhere. Luffy being able to just lift up things like crazy with Kidd isn't just because Oda wanted to make them very impressive. This is something that's been built up for a while, ever since, we had the time skip in One Piece. But okay, stopping that for a second, can we talk about how in this chapter Luffy and Kidd are really getting along? And the more and more I look at the relationship, the more and more I'm kind of weirded out by it. Because it's understandable when you think about Law and Luffy's relationship, why they got along. I mean, Law, since the very beginning, he's always been a little bit different. He always was someone that seemed to really have an interest in Luffy. And I mean, he even went out of his way to actually help out Luffy when he was at Death's Door at Marineford. So Law's always kind of been a good dude. He's always had an interest in Luffy. And so we've always known that they had some form of relationship. They could have a bond. And, they wouldn't necessarily be completely enemies in the future. And then we saw what happened in Punk Hazard and so on. And we saw that they become very, very close friends. But Kidd is a different story. Kidd is an individual that, honestly, we know some things about, but not a whole lot. We know about his devil fruit power. We know that he has apparently committed a lot of heinous acts, hurting a lot of people, which is why his bounty was a lot higher than Luffy's when they met up for the first time. So, I mean, we know Kidd is not necessarily, quote-unquote, a good person. Out of the big three, when it comes to Law, Luffy, and Kidd, Kidd is easily probably the most savage, which makes sense. He's always been built up to kind of be like that. His design speaks volumes. I mean, one of his crew members, I believe, is called Killer, so I mean, yeah, it's common sense that, Kidd is not necessarily a good dude. And when you think about what he has done, it seems like Luffy would never want to work with that individual, but we also need to remember that Luffy as an individual, he's willing to work with scumbags if it means to help people, to save people for the greater good. I mean, let's think about the situation in, Impel Down. And Impel Down, when, he was trying to save Ace, he was getting deeper and deeper down, he encountered many people that were technically bad guys, but he freed them to help him out. But even though he realized that he didn't like them, he realized he needed to have them on his side to be able to get things done. So when he, let's say, let Crocodile out to help him out to reach, the top part of Impel Down to get out, Luffy made a very risky thing. He made a risky play letting someone like Crocodile free, but also he knows how vile Crocodile is. I mean, he's fought Crocodile in the past, he knew how he was, so Luffy had to kind of go against how he felt. He didn't want to probably ever work with someone like Crocodile, but he put aside his own pride to be able to save his brother. And I feel like this is one of those times where Luffy's probably doing that. If Kidd really is retaining his characterization he received in the past, for instance, being heartless, being someone that took his anger out on civilians, yes, the people made fun of his dreams and all that, mocked him, but it still doesn't change the fact that even though people mocked him, he brutally injured them, hurt them, ended them. He did everything, basically. So, this is obviously a character that Luffy would never get along with, the exact opposite of what Luffy believes in. So, yeah, I do believe that the reason why Luffy is working together with him is probably because, once again, they formed a brief alliance to be able to take down Kaido, and then they truly will become enemies once everything is said and done. However, I do believe Kidd will form a bond with Luffy, and probably gain respect for Luffy, even if they will become enemies again. I do believe that there will be respect between them. And the reason why I say that is because, number one, you know, it's very clear from the way this chapter was done that Luffy and Kidd are in some form of, like, rivalry mode. They're rivaling with each other. For instance, they were saying, oh, I carried one more stone than you. They were both comparing and, you know, saying, you know, I did better than you, I did better than you, which proves that in some ways they have formed a bond. They're very competitive, and this could lead to, you know, them wanting to constantly progress, but also they can form a bond to understand each other, gain respect. This is kind of what Katakuri did. Remember Katakuri as an individual, when he was, you know, fighting Luffy, the reason why he grew so attached to Luffy was not just because Luffy is a good man that really draws people towards him, which that is the case, but he was constantly analyzing Luffy. When he was using his observation haki, he happened to constantly watch Luffy, look at every little detail of him, keep calm and composed and all that, not having really any ill will. He just needed to really focus on the fight. He got to watch Luffy and see how he really was as a person, which that fight, that's why it's just so good and why many people love the Katakuri versus Luffy fight. But I feel like what's going on here is kind of slightly similar. It feels like, you know, Kidd and Luffy, they're very aware that both of them are very powerful. Kidd is very aware that Luffy is no joke. He is definitely not someone that's a pushover you can throw to the side. And, you know, Luffy knows that Kidd is not someone that's a pushover you can throw to the side either. Because, I mean, he's been locked up a lot longer than Luffy has. And he survived this long with all his injuries and stuff. So clearly, he is not a weakling. He is definitely still trucking on. But also, it doesn't end there. We also know that he refused Kaido. So he does have an iron will. With what he believes in, how he is as a person, he's not someone to give up the temptation or power or to join someone's forces. He wants to get what he wants. He's not willing to have someone be the boss of him. So I think that's where Luffy and him meet a mutual respect with each other, is that they both want to be captains, they both want to be pirate kings, but at the same time, they both need to work together to take down a common enemy. But okay, let's talk about the entire situation with the Hippo Man in this chapter. So, can we talk about how messed up the Smile Devil Fruit users are? Like, yo. Every time I see a new one introduced, the more and more I realize just how much of an abomination Smiles really are. Because we've seen some weird things in One Piece. Devil fruits, all that, okay? Real devil fruits, not Smile. We've seen some weird things. But despite seeing constant weird events with different powers and stuff in One Piece, it's very clear that the Smile devil fruits by no means are good for you. I mean, every time we have seen a Smile devil fruit user, there is definitely a lot of negative repercussions for eating that fruit. Let's think about Speed. She acts like a horse now because she's half horse. She was able to fall under the command of Tama because of her devil fruit power. We saw the entire stuff with what happened with the man with the lion face on his stomach, constantly attacking him and stuff. So every time we have seen a Smile devil fruit user, there's usually a negative repercussion for it. They're not really in sync with their body. It's like their body is not one unit anymore. It's not fully been absorbed in their body. It's kind of like this. When you eat a devil fruit, the devil fruit kind of assimilates in your body, and you perfectly harness that power. For instance, when you think about people that have zone devil fruit, or, you know, paramecia devil fruit, and all of that, you know, it forms into their body, it flows, and they have perfect control over their body to do whatever they want, like transform into an animal, turn themselves into rubber, whatever, basically. And in this case, it seems that eating the Smile devil fruit, it wasn't a proper, like, transformation, or, you know, ability, like, you know, absorption of the devil fruit, to where it's just kind of like they can't digest it properly. It's like they halfway digested the devil fruit, and it's really messed up their entire system with how these animals just spawn out of their bodies. Like the Hippo Man, like I said, I feel bad for the man. Even though he was a scumbag in this chapter, what he did to the old man is not right, and I think he deserved what happened to him. I just feel bad for the man's lifestyle. Like, the way he's living has to be freaking horrible. I mean, the man is trying to talk to Hippo, just closes over him, and yes, it's a comedy gag, but you really gotta look at the bigger picture. Imagine having your body like that after eating a devil fruit. It just seems like all these devil fruit users that use Smile are really not in good shape. It seems like it's more harm than good than anything else, and I do wonder if any of this will be discussed as time goes on. But it also does make me wonder what's really off about Momo. Remember, that was a big thing that was stated by, you know, what happened earlier on in, you know, this entire arc, you know, with Punk Hazard and stuff. You know, remember, Momo ate an artificial devil fruit that Dr. Vegapunk, you know, Vegapunk created. And we do know that he said that it wasn't finished. It wasn't a complete devil fruit. It was a failure. But even then, we have seen Momo demonstrate a perfect transformation into a dragon, which, when we look at what we've seen already, it seems like a typical Zone devil fruit. But for Dr. Vegapunk to actually say it's a failure, it does have me concerned about Momo. I am very concerned why Vegapunk would say it's a failure after everything we have seen from the Smile users thus far. It probably is something bad. It might not be as extreme as the Smile users, but I do believe there's something that we really just do not know about, and that's why Dr. Vegapunk just gave up probably the entire project. But okay, let's see here. What else to really get into? I guess let's talk about the situation with Usopp and Nami and all of that. So, Usopp did a very impressive move in this chapter. I don't know how many of you noticed it, but in the street, when there's like a news reporting of what was kind of going on, how there's like people doing this mysterious things, attacking people and all that at night, you know, you see Usopp walking through the crowd, and, you know, you don't see anything. You don't see any hand gestures or whatever, but he just walks past this dude, and then this dude looks, and he's like, oh, whoa, this is like an upside-down crest and all that, like a backwards crest, and he's like, who gave this to me? It's very obvious in the way those panels were done, Usopp did that, which I think many are not really giving enough credit to Usopp in that moment. The man legit snuck something into that dude's hand, basically, without him even really being aware of it. Usopp was that sneaky to do that. That's pretty freaking skilled. I think many are not really complimenting Usopp for that. That's some quality stuff. That man did some really good stuff. That's something you would see Nami do, but the man was able to sneak that towards him without anyone really noticing. I'm proud of Usopp for that. I really am proud of him. Now, another thing, too, the whole Nami situation, it's okay. It's more of a comedy scene, personally. Yes, they found out, you know, where the weapons are being made or getting sent, but overall, it's more of a comedy scene than anything else, which, don't get me wrong, I like that, but it isn't really that important compared to everything else that we've seen in this chapter. So I think that's pretty much about it. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy my content, you know, please subscribe. If you like this video, please leave a like, and if you want to get notified for whenever I upload a video, please click the bell icon down below. And with that, Chibi out.